What's up? This is Justin Gordon, mental health therapist, and today we're going to be talking about something called tapping or energy tapping. I'm not going to lie, it's going to get a little weird. Alright, so there's a good chance you have heard of something like this. Some people call it EFT for emotion freedom technique, other people call it tapping, other people call it energy tapping. It's one part of a larger field that we refer to as energy psychology. This is a really powerful technique that I like to show to a lot of my clients for a lot of reasons. One is that they can do it themselves. So it's less about feeding them a fish, to use that analogy, and more about teaching them how to fish. This is something I teach to people and I tell them, go do this on your own. You're probably not going to mess anything up. It's really simple to use. It's time effective. Pretty much anybody can do it. And it's really been effective to treat a lot of different issues. In essence, what we're going to do then is use certain parts of the body that are also used in acupuncture, which you probably heard of, and also acupressure, which you may or may not have heard of. The difference is, rather than using needles, we're just going to be using tapping. We're just going to tap on those parts of our body. So in essence then, energy flows through our body a certain way. So if you imagine how you feel, how the energy is flowing through your body when you are, say, sitting on a beach all by yourself, sipping a fruity drink with not a whole lot of worries in the world, versus how the energy is flowing through your body when you are at work. You've got a lot of angry customers coming at you. You have deadlines to meet. Maybe your boss is upset with you. You've got a lot of stuff going on at home in addition to being at work. There's way too much going on. Stress, frustration. Energy is flowing in your body a whole other way. What we're going to try to do is change the way the energy is flowing in your body from a more stressful state to a more relaxed state. And here's where it gets a little bit weird. We're going to do it by tapping on different parts of your body. We're going to be using some of the same places on your body that clinicians use when they're performing acupuncture. The difference is, rather than using needles, we are going to be tapping on ourselves. If I haven't lost you yet, I'm going to give you a really simple demonstration. So I talked a little bit about how energy flows through our bodies. That's pretty commonly accepted. And to illustrate this point, I'm going to use this highly sophisticated $10 toy that I bought from China off of Amazon. What we have here, it's a little child's toy actually, called an energy rod. It has a battery inside it to power it, and it has lights and a siren. But in and of itself, it doesn't complete the circuit. So energy can't flow through the device how it needs to. You can see the light is not lit up and the siren is not sirening. So what I'm going to do is complete the circuit from one end to the other so that the battery can charge the toy. And I'm going to do that with my body. So right now nothing's happening, but when I touch the other end, it lights up and the siren goes off. Okay. So I'm not charging or powering the toy, obviously. That's what the battery does, but my body is completing the circuit so that it can work. And if, say, I'm using this hand to hold somebody else's hand, and that somebody else is using their other hand to then hold this, same thing, it will light up. It will use both of our bodies to connect the circuit, and then it will light up. So energy flows through our body. What we're going to try to do is change the way that energy is flowing through our body. So we're going to tap on one place on our body to have an effect on different places in our body. Now, to illustrate that point, because I know that seems really weird too, think about it in terms of hitting a light switch on the wall. Connected to the light switch are wires that go up through the wall. You don't see them, but they're there, and then they go across the ceiling and they connect with a light overhead, and then the light turns on when I flip the switch. So I'm touching something in one place to have an effect in a different place. This is a very Eastern medicine practice, and to those of us who were raised in the West, it sounds pretty foreign and we can be kind of skeptical. I know I was pretty skeptical at first. If this helps, this technique is actually very heavily research based. There's no small amount of research that's been done out there using this technique on a number of different problems. There is a substantial research body out there saying this is effective. All right, in case that's still way too vague in general, I'll give you a quick example then to illustrate this point so that hopefully it will sound less vague and start to make more sense. And then I'll give a more thorough explanation and a demonstration. So for example, say I got in a horrible car accident a lot of years ago and now I just can't drive without having a lot of anxiety. What I would do is form a certain statement related to that anxiety, and I would repeat that statement as I tap on one of the several different places of our body where we're going to tap. And in particular, I like to go to this spot because this is the anxiety spot, and anxiety is what I treat more than most other issues. So what I would do was have a statement that says something along the lines of, even though I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about driving right now, I know I will be okay. Or even though I'm having a lot of anxiety about driving right now, accidents rarely happen. Or even though I'm having a lot of anxiety about driving right now, I've been driving for a lot of years. Or even though I'm having a lot of anxiety about driving right now, I'm a really good, safe driver. And then I repeat that point as I tap on each of the other places. And the reason I start with this particular point is because it is the anxiety spot. We focus on this spot when we're trying to treat anxiety. So this spot is similar to the light switch in the analogy that I gave you. And the energy runs from this light switch up to the top of the head, over to the back of the head, down the backbone, and up underneath, and then back, and sort of ends in the stomach. Now the setup phrase is really important because typically when I'm having anxiety, it's about something, or having any unpleasant feeling, it is about something, and I usually have a general idea of what it is. So as a response to that, my body is carrying around a lot of the emotion that I want to reduce. Now the setup phrase is really important because a lot of the healing from this doesn't just come from tapping on our body. It comes from acknowledging a certain unpleasant emotion we have that we're trying to work with, and acknowledging what it's from, at least generally, and also having some kind of a positive and realistic response to that feeling and that stressor, or whatever feeling and what's causing it. So we're not just tapping on ourselves, it's done deliberately and with a purpose. That statement is really important. A lot of times we get carried away in a feeling, and this is a good way of helping sort of bring us back, helping put that feeling into perspective. The statement acknowledges what's going on and says, I'm going to carry on in spite of this feeling. I'm going to try to reduce it somewhat, and at the same time, I'm going to carry on regardless of how much of that symptom remains or that feeling remains. Now, that being said, it is really important that we craft this statement a certain way. It can be a powerful tool for feeling how we want to feel. So sometimes we have to be careful with the verbiage, the wording that we use. Now, in the statement, there are typically three things that we work with. One is the feeling that we're working on. The second one is what's causing that feeling. And the third one is our positive and realistic response to it. So think of it as filling in three blanks. Now, with the feeling, really important to use wording that shows the feeling as separate from you. We call it externalizing that feeling. What that means is this: there's a difference between saying I'm anxious and I'm feeling anxiety, or I'm anxious and I'm having anxiety. One sort of makes the feeling sound like it's part of my identity, and the others acknowledge it as just a feeling. I am feeling it, but it is still separate from me. So this can be a powerful tool in reminding ourselves that no, I'm not anxious, I'm me. I am temporarily experiencing this unpleasant anxiety. So be careful with that wording. Also important to state what we're having that feeling about, what's causing it. Usually if we can identify it and define it, it makes it feel more manageable. And the last part is our positive and realistic response to the feeling that we're having. And if nothing else, you can keep it as simple as I'm okay. In other words, even though I'm feeling anxiety about driving, I'm okay. Sometimes it can be as simple as that. If you want to get more complicated, again, make it realistic, right? Because you don't want to say something like, this is the last time I'm going to feel anxiety, or I'm going to get rid of all of my anxiety. It's not realistic. Your body's not going to buy it. We're not trying to fool our body. Needs to be realistic. Also, really important that it is positive. You're not going to soothe your anxiety if you say something like, even though I'm feeling a lot of anxiety right now, it's only going to get worse from here. That's probably not going to work. So it needs to be realistic and positive. We're trying to make you feel better. Now, quick and important plug on acceptance. We're not trying to completely eliminate anxiety. It's there for a reason. It's a survival mechanism. It has saved our butt a lot of times in the past. We just are trying to reduce it and, to some degree, accept what we can't reduce. So that's a setup statement in a nutshell. Again, we go down through the various spots on our body while we repeat that setup statement. We go through each point, and then we sort of check in with ourselves and see if that has helped to shift some things around a bit. a lot of times something really cool happens, which is that we feel some kind of a shift, whether it's a calming shift that we feel in a different part of our body, or we feel like the feeling that we're trying to reduce does reduce somewhat, or sometimes we might even have some kind of an inspirational thought. Something will come to us, we'll have an insight, and it will help us to feel better in some ways. So at some point, a lot of times we feel some kind of a change in our thoughts, our feelings, or our physical sensations, and it sort of opens up an avenue that we can pursue and then go down through the next round of tapping on the different places, sort of pursuing that avenue somewhat. It's a really cool way to sort of check in with our body, listen to our body, and let our body sort of guide us as we go. This is a very body-based approach. All right, so that is tapping in a very general nutshell. If you're still with me so far, I'm going to do another video where I go down each of the different points that we generally use to tap on using a very specific example, sort of how I would lead a client down through this process, and you can use it to apply to most of the different things that you might be dealing with on your own.